What's up, everyone? Welcome to Power Play with CJ. Today we're going to focus in on one of my all-time favorite players, Theo Fleury, and why I think the great number 14 belongs in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Obviously, due to substance abuse issues, he was, during his playing days, one of the more controversial players in the league. But through his book, Playing with Fire, which is one of the best books I've ever read, personally, hockey or otherwise, I highly recommend you go out and get that. It really is a life-changing book. You really understand, especially in the recent wake of the Penn State and Syracuse investigations with the sexual abuse, what that does to a person long term, and how it destroyed Theo, and it caused Theo to go on a path of self-destruction that affected not only him but a lot of the people who he loved and loved him around him. And it was really a sad story, but it was a story of triumph over addiction and finally overcoming the demons that kept him down for most of his career, most of his life. Obviously the Graham James sexual abuse of him and Sheldon Kennedy were just awful, and that really destroyed both of them, and kept Sheldon Kennedy from having a more illustrious NHL career, and forced Theo to use cocaine and alcohol to bury the demon within him, and ultimately that cost him his hockey career. But I think he tried to come back 2 years ago with the Calgary Flames, and it was really inspirational. Played 4 exhibition games for the Flames, had 4 points, but at the end of the day, it wasn't meant to be, and he was cut. But I think it's really inspirational he did that. He wanted to leave the game on his own note and didn't. He was suspended in 2003 indefinitely when he was with the Blackhawks for substance abuse, and he didn't want to leave. He didn't want his NHL career to end on that note, and I think that's really admirable that he attempted to come back. Just the attempt. It's the bravery it took to go out there and do that is outstanding. And I'm going to talk right now about his hockey career before we talk about everything else, or after we've talked about everything else. Played 1,084 games, had 1,088 points with the Flames, Avalanche, Rangers, and Blackhawks. Was on the Calgary team in '89 as a rookie that won it with alongside such great players as Joe Nieuwendyk, Al McGinnis, Gary Roberts was on that team, Dougie Gilmore. Just an outstanding team. And it's too bad the Calgary ownership was as cheap as they were, and mortgage most of that team in the years to come. Trading so many guys that were key players on that team. Within the couple years afterwards, I kept Calgary from winning multiple cups, especially at that point. Edmonton was at the end of their run. They really could have been a dominant team out west for a number of years, but the Calgary ownership chose to break that team up, and that cost Theo chances for more deep playoff runs. That was the only time he went to the finals when he won the cup that year. He never made out of the first round with the Flames, unfortunately. He when he went to Colorado, went to conference finals with the Avalanche, and lost to Dallas the year they won the Stanley Cup. But he had one of the best playoff series of all time in '95 against San Jose when he had 14 points in 7 games, 7 goals, 7 assists. He had a 4-goal game, I think, against one of those games on NHL Classic Games on Netflix. It's on the NHL Vault, excuse me. And it was outstanding just how good he was. And I didn't even talk about how tiny he was. He was 5'6", 170 pounds. He's a small guy that used speed, finesse, and tenacity to get through much bigger opponents. When Marty McSorley punched the shit out of him his first year in the league, split his thing open. Baumgartner roughed him up pretty good, but he was fearless. That's what you got to do. He's a tiny guy that can dart through you with speed and also outwork it. He really played hard, worked the corners, worked the front of the net, and was just absolutely fearless. He was a little monster out there. He was what did one of the coaches call him? An Indian rubber ball. You throw him against the wall, he comes back twice as strong. I think that was Terry Crisp's label for him. He really that also led to inopportune penalties, especially later in his career with the Rangers, when he finished top 5 in the league in penalty minutes with 216 this last year on Broadway. That's when the substance abuse problems were really coming to a head, when they got really out of control. But he stayed strong. Ended up getting sober in 2005, and I played that year in Belfast with the Belfast Giants of the Irish Hockey League, of the English Hockey League, and played in Ireland, and was that league's MVP. And like I said, tried to come back with Calgary, didn't work out, but he ended his hockey career on a much more positive note than he did when he got in a fight in a strip club in Columbus with Chicago in 2003. It's not something you ever want to see a guy end his career. Like, it's never fights in strip clubs are never a good thing. Or strip clubs, only bad things can happen to them. Really, unfortunately, I've learned that the hard way. But well, so like I said, he one thing I thought could have changed his career at the end of it was had he signed with the Lightning instead of Chicago. I think that Chicago team was really wasn't that good, and B was injury riddled that year. Had he signed with the Lightning, he would have had a strong locker room presence with Davey Andrechuk and Marty St. Louis, Nikolai Havy-Bulin, guys like that were great character guys in addition to being great hockey players. And I think they really could have reeled him in a little bit, and he would have been on that Stanley Cup team in '04. He would have had a second Stanley Cup ring, and I think his points playing him and Marty St. Louis were both overlooked because of their size at different points in their hockey career, and they both overcame it. I think he was a lot tougher than Marty, and I don't mean that at least in regards to the penalty minutes. Marty's a perennial contender for the league, and Theo really wasn't. And that that's his difference in his play style. Theo was more sandpaper, and Marty's more flash and dash. But it would have been really exciting to see him play with St. Louis. Two tiny guys that really, like I said, overcame a lot to make it to the NHL. I think Marty St. Louis belongs in the Hall of Fame too, but that's a different story entirely. But like I said in the Jeremy Roenick episode, you need 500 goals to get in the Hall of Fame. He's got 455. I think you can overlook that because what he did off the ice and helping him bring this sexual predator that is Graham James to justice. That's something that you can't put a statistic on, if you will. That derailed his hockey career and forced him into the substance abuse problems and made him a perennial occupant of the NHL substance abuse program. But I think the book, he's also founded the 1 in 6 Foundation to help men who have sustained sexual abuse throughout their lives. I think his book, Playing with Fire, has helped a lot of people come to grips with the demons of their past. I think he's helped a lot of people overcome addiction. I think he's really a role model for young players everywhere that are told they were too small or not good enough or what have you. And I think that's what should get him in. I think his stats on the ice were great, better than a point per game in his career. But what he did off the ice to help people, after he made a lot of mistakes, and he's clear with that, but he overcame that, and he's really a tremendous human being and a great contributor to society that I think belongs in hockey immortality. I think that '89 Flames team was one of the best of all time. Like I said, Al McGinnis, Joey Newendike, Dougie Gilmore, Gary Roberts. I think he belongs in immortality along with a couple of his teammates on that team, and he is one. With the exception of Iggy, he's probably the greatest Flame of all time. McGinnis maybe, but him and Iggy's the first ballot Hall of Famer in my opinion, and I think the opinion of a lot of people. And I think the Hockey Hall of Fame owes it to people who have undergone abuse or overcame addiction everywhere to induct Theo. He really belongs there, and I hope his credentials on and off the ice speak for themselves and get him in there eventually. That's it for this episode on Theo Fleury. Stay tuned for more episodes, and let me know what you think. I'm really curious to see what other hockey fans think of Theo, or does he belong, does he not belong? What do you think, guys? Later.